Where does he buy the blanks for the homemade?
Got him with it.
He had them for
ages. Got him when the Slaughters and Cargling show.
That's vile. Do you lift weights even? Was it live? Were people waiting? Did you do the thing?
There were people waiting.
How did you figure it out?
Yeah. See, you got prompted as well.
Yeah. Oh, did I get the email as well? I love you get the email.
Oh, I don't get the email.
You don't get the email? Oh, I got the email, yeah. Oh, yeah, nah.
Oh, yeah, nah.
Oh, yeah, nah.
We have an Australian in the chat.
Oh, no. Oh, no. My protein hurt.
Getting after it with the paid ads. Can everyone hear us and see us and tune in and all that? Okay.
Chad says he hopes we're doing goddamn well, and we're doing great. Dar's a little bit tired today, but it happens. Some days I'm not tired and he's tired. Some days he's not tired and I'm tired. Today's one of the days where he's tired and I'm not tired.
Just be how it be.
It's unpredictable, impossible to understand the reasons why. No one knows why. It just happens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All I know is that I'm tired.
So that's that's how it is. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
bees how it bees.
Did you train yesterday?
Just a run.
I like when the edges of the beard are sharp.
I like to shave one.
When is the last time you were clean shaven with a razor? Sister's wedding?
No. Remember that court thing this year?
Oh, yeah. Not your court thing, just to be clear.
Nah, just to be clear.
Well, there's only 8 likes.
Only 8 people liking it.
It's like they don't want other people.
My God.
It's like they don't want other people.
Oh my God, they just spilled energy drink.
So, energy drink, like healthy warrior blend, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Tastes like ass. Got the tropical punch.
Fruit punch. Anything with that fake cherry flavor or fake grape flavor is just.
Is it tropical? Which flavor?
Tropical punch.
Yeah. Pure shite. 180 milligrams of caffeine as well. I bet you the caffeine is from like akaki berries.
Chia berries.
Or something. Where's the caffeine? Does it say where the caffeine is from? I guarantee it's from. I bet you it's from. It's not from coffee, like caffeine. Coffee, I guarantee it's not. Green tea extract and green coffee.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course. Right, let's just kick off into it. So, Chad, we are doing goddamn well, although fatigue has hit. Adrian McKenna, former 1-to-1 athlete, now an RTA athlete. Hope you're both doing well. Running the RTA now, I'm planning to do weightlifting block 1 when I finish the squat program. Should I do full maintenance block before starting block 1? No. You'd be better off just to run the normal squats that are in the squat program. They'll tend to fit in a small bit better. If you were having to delay the start of your weightlifting for some reason, whether that's like training frequency or whatever, by all means get kicking off into the squat maintenance phase just so you hold on to a bit more of the squat. But overall, you should just kind of get into the weightlifting as quickly as you possibly can. Use the maintenance phase for something else down the road. But right now, the most effective thing will be just start the weightlifting block and run the squats that are in that.
Yeah, Chad is wondering, he wants to run the off-season program once it's done and wants to use it like a lot of people do is for losing weight, and he wants a good rate of weight loss. I think somewhere in the region of not going too long with your weight loss, like not really drawing it out as a definite recommendation. I think not going to get anywhere. And it's definitely a mistake people make a lot is they'll do it the actual weight loss section for too long. So you'll have like those weight loss sections. I think they should definitely be interspersed by maintenance sections. You'll have a weight loss section, intermittent maintenance section for however long that takes, and weight loss again. I don't think you should do the whole thing in one go. And so I think the biggest thing people make the mistake is doing the whole thing in one go, and maybe not losing enough when they're actually doing it. So depending on kind of what weight you are, I think like a kilo a week is good for most people if you're in the region of kind of like 95 plus weight. So if you're anywhere in the triple digits, you should be seeing a kilo a week for the first couple of weeks. And then you don't really want to see the weight loss phase lasts too much longer than kind of 2 or 3 months, depending on how much you have to lose. Like it might be a scenario, Chad, if you've only got 2 or 3 kilos to lose, and if you've got 2 months to do it, over the course of 6 to 8 weeks, that's plenty of time. It kind of depends on where you're coming from and what and where you kind of want to end up going. If it's a very small amount of weight, 5 kilos or less, not small, and that's not a small amount of weight, but it's not this kind of life-changing, athlete-changing weight. So you're not someone going from 120 kilos all the way down to something like 80 kilos. That's a vastly different endeavor. If you're just trying to clean yourself up a little bit, that kind of 2-month period for most people for a less than 5 kilo weight, I think is quite good. It evens out quite nicely there. You lose a little bit more at the start, and then you kind of gradually slow down. And then I think once you've kind of be just defined with that phase for how long you're doing it. So pick that phase, make sure you lose it in that phase or as much as possible. And then once that phase is over, definitely a big fan of kind of diet breaks or cutting breaks, because I think that prolonged signal is not productive for your life, for your quality of sleep, for craving, stuff like that. It does add up at the end of the day. So I would definitely recommend being defined with the amount of time you're doing it. And then depending on how much weight you're losing, if you're losing a huge amount of weight, you'll need to do it in segments. If it's a very reasonable amount of weight, then, somewhere in the 2 or 3 months is a very good length of time, and try average it out over that course of time and see what you get.
Skate961 asks, Sikistan ZMA ? No, we won't be doing ZMA. ZMA as a blend is like a trademarked product, or it's in some way protected product.
Is it still trademarked?
I think so, yeah. So they still have that, just those particular ratios of zinc to magnesium to vitamin B6. It's a great product, really, really good.
Yeah,
it may not be trademarked anymore. Actually,
I don't know if it is.
Still see it with the T next to it,
Yeah.
It might be copyrighted term or something, but no, we won't be doing that. We will have a supplement coming out, but it won't be ZMA.
It is for sleep, though, of course.
Yeah.
It is sleep-related products, but it won't be. It'll be a kind of a play on zinc. There'll be zinc and magnesium in it.
Chadley and Polly Green says, what should I do to maintain my deadlift, bench press during it? Going to run the squat maintenance during the off season. So the number one thing you need to forget about if you're in a weight loss phase is maintaining numbers, because they're not going to be maintained. To be honest, I see most people falling in between the two stools where they won't maintain their numbers, but they'll be trying really hard to do it. They also won't lose the weight, even though they'll be trying hard to do it. So you'd be better off not running the squat maintenance phase, not having this kind of thing of I'm going to maintain my bench and my deadlift when it's there. When you're in that off-season period, or you're in a weight loss period or whatever, you're there to do a certain job. Once you get back, it's very, very easy to get back to numbers, incredibly easy to get back to numbers, particularly if it's only for kind of 6 to 8 weeks, like Gurf was talking about. You don't need to be worrying about maintaining anything during it. And whatever you lose in 6 to 8 weeks can be very, very easily be gotten back. So I wouldn't run like the maintenance phase of the squat program or anything like that. Just run the off-season athlete program. You'll be good to go. When you're dropping down weight anyway, it's going to affect that kind of 1RM number. So just make sure when you're doing a job, just do that job. Don't worry about trying to keep all the other balls in the air. You're much, much better off. Just do the weight loss or the weight gain or whatever it is, and then go back to normal training afterwards. Be much more efficient.
Yeah, maintenance of muscle mass for everybody during a weight loss is priority number uno. And then joint first, depending on what you're doing. If you're an athlete, skill maintenance is the second one, or joint first. So if you're a non-strength athlete or whatever, Chad, I know is not part of thing, but for anyone else listening, if you were like BJJ, combat sports, throwing, whatever it is, maintenance of your skills and maintenance of muscle mass are the priorities, not maintenance of 1RM strength or anything else like that during a weight loss phase. Patrick is saying, injured my wrist doing BJJ. What can I do to increase my upper body strength when it helps? Benching hurts even when the wrist wraps. So the most important thing you do is keep training the side that's not injured. So via unilateral stuff, so dumbbell benching, dumbbell rowing. It's the contralateral effect. It's the bilateral transference. There's 3 names for it, and the third name is eluding me. Do you know any other name for it?
I always call it bilateral transfer.
Bilateral transfer, contralateral effect, and there's one other name for it. Bilateral transference, maybe. Essentially, it's the training of one side. It does stimulate the other side and maintains the muscle mass on the opposite side. So, best thing you can possibly do, keep training the opposite side that's not hurt. So dumbbell benching, one arm pull-ups if you can do them, but maybe not. Dumbbell rowing, all of that good stuff. Keep training all that stuff as much as possible, and it does transfer to the other side in an absolute side swipe from nature, just being like, wow, doesn't really make sense in some ways, but it kind of makes sense in other ways. It's very cool that it happens. So that's the main thing. Is just keep training the opposite side, and then obviously give your wrist time to heal.
I'd say as well, go very hard on the other side. You know, like try and get the most training you possibly can get done on that other side. Like, don't be worried about overdoing it. Like, really try and push it quite hard. Another thing I would say, and like we're answering this is an injury question, but we're not addressing an injury directly, so we're answering it. But when you have an injury, particularly like a wrist, right? So when it's a small joint injury, a lot of the time it can affect like movements that have nothing to do with it, like the barbell back squat can be affected by wrist issues, deadlifting, in this case, obviously bench pressing. What I would say is you really need to look into as many different exercises as you possibly can and try them all out to see which ones don't get triggered by it. Like in a strange turn of events, if your shoulder's injured or if your wrist or elbow are injured, a lot of the time the back squat isn't a usable movement. But if you do a front squat where you're holding on to straps, you can front squat quite a lot of weight like that without any wrist pain or anything. So don't be afraid to go to the gym and kind of try out different things. Once you identify maybe a handful of exercises, then really focus on those exercises and push those as hard as you possibly can with the non-injured side, with the injured side. And then with your non-injured side, you can go and you can do all your usual single arm movements and push them quite hard. Sam says hi. Nathan says he forgot this tab was open and shit himself when we started talking. I hope it's useful for you if we do that schedule thing where we might schedule a 15 minutes beforehand or whatever.
Max is saying, when's you got Bodie putting out Commonwealth Games? So in typical fashion, obviously, we think it's sus. You know, he was actually like 170, 200 a few weeks ago in Greece, like last week or something. And this obviously was a very easy Commonwealth Gold Games for his. So it's
strange.
It's suspect, but of course the injury could have drastically changed the last few days, and maybe they were like, look, it's not worth it. The Commonwealth Games isn't his prime goal. You know, the Olympic medal is of course something for him that's a priority. So it wouldn't be worse. It really isn't worth risking it, make it a lot worse when it's not your priority. I think would be the main thing there.
Yeah. Alex says,
go on, sorry.
Have you guys heard of or played Ultimate Frisbee? If so, would there be any ultimate specific tips you have for S&C?
The university we both went to, people played Ultimate Frisbee and everybody called them Frisbee wankers. That's it. Because what they used to do is, outside any lecture, they would start just reefing around the Frisbee, and then everyone just started calling them Frisbee wankers.
Yeah.
I'm not ragging on you. I'm not ragging.
I know one guy who plays Ultimate Frisbee and he's a very nice guy.
Oh, no, whoa. I didn't say anyone wasn't a nice guy. I'm just saying, as soon as I saw Ultimate Frisbee wankers was immediately what I thought of.
Yeah.
I'm not ragging on anyone there. So,
the thing with Ultimate Frisbee is, and this goes across all sports, specific S&C tips really shouldn't exist in sport, you know. So S&C as a joined up thing, as a unit, S&C is general athletic development. So it's general strength and conditioning training. And then your sports work is applied sports work. So along the lines of Ultimate Frisbee, you have any of your kind of classic non-contact field sports, very similar to soccer, very similar in some ways to field hockey, because you have that kind of wide lunging. And then you really need to look at like resilience to injury is probably the most important thing for your S&C work. So it's not like you're going to be doing S&C work where you'll drastically affect somebody's ability to vertically jump, or you'll drastically affect their sprint outcomes. Like in most cases, you're not going to make someone much faster at sprinting or much higher with their jumping. You'll just kind of realize their genetic potential in that factor. But for most of the time with S&C work, we're working with players to make sure they're more resilient to injury, so then they can play more games. When they're playing games, they can better demonstrate their abilities. So for Ultimate Frisbee people, you'd certainly be looking at the ability to jump, bound, and land correctly. So your kind of stage 1, stage 2 plyometric work, making sure their movements in things like squats are good, making sure their ability to control themselves through ranges of motion are good. And they'd be very, very similar to, you might want to start off with something like a functional movement screening, or any of those kind of FMS screens, just to see where you might be lacking ranges of motion. I then move on to some sort of very basic plyometric work, just making sure you're able to jump, land, rebound, all those kind of things. And then if you had specific areas where you've been injured in the past, you might want to look at that for some prehab work or direct rehab work, and make sure the body is in kind of the best shape possible. But overall, you never want to be specific with S&C work. So you wouldn't want like kayakers doing just kayaking in the gym with like weighted paddles, or you wouldn't want baseball players just swinging weighted bats. You know, a lot of the time what you're doing is you're just making sure the actual unit of the player is in a good condition, and making sure they're very resilient to injury. And then in the kind of non-contact field sports area, those injuries tend to be in your high demand agility exercises. So that would be change of direction work, but also they tend to be in kind of landing or landing from jumps. And that's where a lot of injuries tend to happen. You might have some shoulder RSI as well. So maybe some shoulder work would be beneficial.
Alberto has any recommendations on deeper overhead squats? So there's essentially three main areas that it can be. It's ankle dorsiflexion, so how far over your knees, how far over your toes your knees can go. Then you have internal and external rotation of the hip. Both of those are very, very important for the overhead squat. And then, of course, you have thoracic spine, or lats and thoracics related to each other. And then how that relates to your internal and external rotation. So without seeing your squat, it's going to be ankles, hips, and then, of course, shoulders. So you might say that's basically everything. And that is everything. That's one of the reason the functional screening will a lot of times use the overhead squat, even in unrelated to weightlifting, because it does cover a lot of areas quite quickly when you're trying to be fast at assessment. So ankle range of motion, look at that. Hip internal and external rotation, look at that. And then look at thoracic mobility, lats, internal and external rotation of the shoulders, and it should cover the vast majority of them. I would say off the bat, most of the time, it's ankles for people that restrict a lot of people when they don't have the range of motion. Most people kind of hold the bar overhead, unless you're someone that you've 45 plus years old and you've never done any kind of weight training before, never held a barbell overhead, then it could be stability overhead. But for most people, it's almost always ankles being the real murderer.
Okay, Robert says, my front squat is 180 kilos, my back squat's 190 kilos. What can I do to increase my back squat? Question mark. And then he says AM, but that might be a typo. So it's a couple of things to look at here. Firstly, Robert, the first thing is this might just be a training specificity thing. Like you might have done a lot of front squats with your training. You might have done a lot of cleans or power cleans with your training. And you're just more comfortable in the front squat position. And in that case, it's very simple. You back squat more frequently with the back squat, and it'll probably improve. Right? The next thing you want to look at is any sort of bias from like anterior to posterior you might have. So if you take someone like Gerf will have a massive anterior bias. His front squat will be much closer to his back squat than somebody like me who'd have a big posterior bias. In that case, if you wanted to get your back squat to be stronger, you probably have to look at some sort of weakness you'd have in your posterior chain, whether that's spinal erectors, whether that's glutes, whether that's hamstrings, or some sort of combination of those and many, many more in your posterior chain. That could be a factor. You might need some specific posterior chain work to get that back squat to be a small bit stronger. It might just be that any sort of inclination over of your torso, that posterior chain feels compromised or weakened, and then you'll have to strengthen that up so it'll allow you to squat more weight. The last thing could be that the actual mechanics of your back squat are wrong. So a lot of the time when we're getting people to back squat, we get them to back squat with the bar on their bony process at the back of their shoulder. Most of the time we see other people high bar back squatting, they have the bar up here, right up in their traps. That's really not where we want the bar. We don't want the bar right up in our neck when we're high bar back squatting. If you're some sort of genetic elite where your levers are perfect and all that, that's great. And you can squat in that position, but that's essentially within like kind of 30 millimeters of where a front squat would be. It's just the thickness of your spinal column away from where a front squat would be. And so in that case, just moving the barbell a bit lower on your back would help you massively with that.
And obviously, the best way to bring it for back squat is run the rotating your back squat program. 8 weeks, 2 sessions per week. Average like 20 kilos per program. Alex is saying hello from USA, so Alex is a frisbee man. Jim says he's digging these working hour streams, at least when I'm not super busy. Thanks for watching, Jim. OM says, hi lads, bit of a generic question, but how would you go about hypertrophy forearms plus upper arms? So hypertrophy is all about a volume gain. A lot of the research, there's fuck tons of research, and anyone who tells you that they have a definitive answer is kind of lying to you, because there's a plethora of research out there. There's 2 main camps at the moment, and it's kind of both of those have a lot of research supporting them. One is essentially load doesn't matter hugely, it's all about volume. And then the other is more from people, I suppose, quote unquote, in the trenches, would say things like it's really very important about getting as close to failure as possible. There's a lot of science supporting that volume is the most important one, and that's one that's been around for a long time. So the main thing you'd focus on is volume and looking at as much volume as you possibly can get to those, while still using a reasonably challenging weight. So what it looks like from the research is that essentially, unless you get under something like, I think it's a 10 or 20% of your RM, it will have a hypertrophy effect if you do enough number of repetitions. So for arms and forearms, it's literally whatever actions triceps and biceps do, and focus on those as much as possible. So curling, extension, flexion of the elbow, so curls, pressing, for as many reps with challenging weights you can get. Forearms are a little bit trickier to grow. So again, do the forearms multiple functions. So flexion, extension of the wrist, hit those. And then also gripping and holding is another unique function of your hand. There's a disposable thumb, along with big, fat, juicy brains and forward-facing eyes is one of the reasons why we're where we are. So use that function of your hand to grip and squeeze things. So, you'll see like weightlifters will have some development of their forearms, depending. They're big forearms. So you'll see pulling that stuff is just very beneficial. So gripping things and pulling with them without using straps is very, very useful. So heavy farmers carries, holds, stuff like that, plate grips, benches like that, very, very useful. So volume, time and attention, all super useful.
Ideally for hand and forearm stuff, you just want to regress back to your early childhood and get your parents to force you to do heavy things.
Yes.
That would really help a lot, as useless as that information is. Elliot Hooker says, thoughts on Michaela Breeze's commentary of the Commonwealth Games. I haven't watched any of it so far, so I'll leave that up to you.
The Commonwealth Games for Ireland is, look, it's not a very sensitive issue, but I suppose the Commonwealth Games should really be known as the former colonial games. So there's 54 countries. It's largely made up of countries that are formerly part of the British Empire. Ireland officially left the Commonwealth Games in 1949. We gained our independence from the British Empire in like 1922, so about 100 years this year. Obviously, Ireland was colonized by the England, I suppose, technically, for somewhere in the region of about 800 years. A lot of people were murdered, enslaved, butchered, exported from the country. Genocide was committed. So involvement with the Commonwealth Games, from our point of view, would be spitting in the face of our ancestors who were, brutalized via an empire. The Commonwealth Games is a symbol of that. Post-World War II, the Commonwealth Games was an effect or an effort by the British Empire to maintain trade ties with the empire while dissolving in a changing world, and they no longer could maintain an empire like this. So it was a way of them maintaining ties with countries like that. Of course, Ireland heavily did not want to be involved in that, and still don't want to be involved in that. A quarter of our country